Reddit has a thriving community of sober curious people and people who've stopped drinking. And recently, I saw a post that I wanted to talk about. I love this post. I think it speaks to a problem that a lot of people are having nowadays who are in their 20s. And I wanted to talk about why I loved it, as well as some advice I'd give to the Reddit poster. But first, who am I? My name's Jamie. I'm 27. Over 18 months ago, I realized that alcohol was stopping me from accomplishing a lot of goals that I had physically, mentally, emotionally, financially, and I changed my relationship with alcohol. And over the last year, I've been alcohol free 100%, so not a drop. Now I'm trying to share how to navigate some of those social situations and how to go alcohol free more consistently with people like yourself on YouTube. So the title of the Reddit post is Want to Quit Binge Drinking, and this is what it says. I, 25 male, I'm really struggling with binge drinking on Saturdays. I wouldn't call myself an alcoholic because I don't drink during the week. I don't crave alcohol, and I live a healthy lifestyle otherwise. I work out regularly and eat clean. The issue is Saturdays. I play team sports, football, with friends, and after every game, drinking has basically become part of the routine. It's a lot of fun in the moment, but the aftermath is terrible. I have horrible hangovers on Sunday, and sometimes even feel off well into Monday. Since last year, I have a serious job, which sometimes it affects with brain fog. On top of that, I end up doing some other stuff I normally avoid, like smoking, eating junk, or wrecking my sleep. I'm not trying to quit drinking entirely, at least not right now. What I do want is to stop the binge drinking and find a way to just have a couple of beers and call it a night. I want to enjoy the social part without it completely derailing my weekend and my goals. Has anyone else dealt with something similar? How did you manage to scale back your drinking without cutting yourself off from your social group? I really need some advice. So I'll just start with why I like this post. I think it speaks a lot to a problem that people in their 20s have, which is they don't feel like an alcoholic, and alcoholic is not a word that would accurately describe them, but alcohol still has a bad influence on their life. And this is exactly where I sat too. I was definitely not an alcoholic. I wasn't craving alcohol or, drinking during the week or in work or something like that. But alcohol definitely had a negative impact on my life in terms of the amount that I would drink on the weekends, and then the leftover effects that it would have on Sunday, Monday, and going into the week. It just creates a bad cycle of up and down drinking and how your body reacts and feels to it. The other thing I like about this post is that he talks about alcohol leading to other things he avoids. And I think this is something that we often so forget about alcohol, is that although alcohol itself is bad, it also leads us to do things that we don't want to do. So in this case, he was saying smoking, destroying his sleep, eating junk food, that type of thing. And depending on who you are, it could be using other types of drugs or doing something dumb like driving drunk. And so alcohol is such a powerful drug in itself, but it also leads us to things that we don't want, which is one of the biggest reasons, in my opinion, if that is you, to cut it out entirely from the get-go. So this poster's question is that he wants to give up binge drinking without having to give up alcohol, because he doesn't want to cut off his social group and he wants to keep all the social elements without giving up drinking entirely. So the advice I'd give this poster is to decouple drinking and the social aspects. In our modern society, they're so intertwined. I know this can be hard, but he's essentially saying, I want all the social elements and I don't want to give up alcohol because that would lead to me losing the social elements, which I just don't think is true. This poster seems to have a shared passion for athletics, specifically football in this instance, which to me means that there's a shared interest with these group of guys that's not just drinking. If it was just a group where, he was meeting up with the guys every Saturday night at a bar, then I would think cutting out alcohol entirely might lead to a lot of broken friendships. But considering there's a lot of other shared interests here, then I think him giving up alcohol or stopping drinking alcohol could actually still lead to a positive relationship with these guys. Obviously, the information I have is limited, but I think when you have shared interests that aren't drinking, then when you remove the drinking, you still have things to talk about. This is why, in terms of action and actionable steps here, I would recommend that this person does a 30-day alcohol-free challenge and is super upfront with the guys he's hanging out with that he's doing that. Moderation, however much it sounds like something you want to do and people are like, oh, well, I'm just going to cut myself back down to one or two, that rarely works, especially if you are a binge drinker, because in social situations like this, although you might tell yourself you want one or two, you'll start to get pressured by everyone else who's drinking to have more, and very quickly you run past the limit you set for yourself. Plus, if this is a normal behavior for you, once you have one or two, your body kicks into that mode of just continuing to drink. And so I know it sounds less appealing to do a full alcohol-free month or just to cut out alcohol completely, but I truly do think that it'll be the only way to successfully test this out. And the reason I think a 30-day alcohol-free challenge is important is because these guys will understand it. Maybe they don't like it, but if you say, hey, for 1 month, 4 weekends, I'm just trying being alcohol-free, I think they'll give you some, slack, and you might get some jokes made, but at the end of the day, they'll get it because they think, okay, well, in 4 weeks, he'll start drinking with us again. And again, it might be hard at first, and the first weekend or the second weekend might still be challenging to interact with these guys entirely sober, especially if they're all drinking. But I think by the weekend 3 or weekend 4, you'll come to one of 3 conclusions. The first conclusion would be that you can totally hang with these guys sober. They're cool guys. You have a shared passion for football and sports, and you don't need to keep drinking to fit in and have fun. And I think this would be kind of the mindset shift from the perspective that this user is looking at now, which is right now they're thinking, well, I want the social parts, and so I can't give up drinking. But by the end of these 4 weeks, you might realize that you can get all those same social parts without drinking at all, and you might just have non-alcoholic options or soft drinks or water. So I think that's one potential outcome. Depending on who these guys are and how open they are and how much actual other friendship there is, the second option or the second conclusion you might come to is that they're just actually not worth hanging out with. And so maybe you still play sports with them, and then instead of going out to the bar, you go do something else. Maybe it does take away the sports because you realize these guys aren't people you want to be hanging around with anyway. And although that is a harsh conclusion to come to, it's better that you come to it now and sooner so that it doesn't derail the rest of your life than trying to hold to that social group and then letting yourself regret it later when you realize you haven't accomplished the goals that you wanted to accomplish. And the third conclusion would be that you do like these guys and you feel comfortable trying to reintroduce alcohol because you want to keep drinking. Maybe the sober life just isn't something that you identify with and you want to introduce alcohol again after that 1 month, and that's totally fine. But I would say do this with caution. Definitely have a limit and try to be open about that limit too, because if you start reintroducing it after 1 month and these guys are all waiting for that moment, they're going to make you go overboard again, and you might just start binge drinking again like you were a month prior, which will lead to all these things that you don't like. Although this is technically an option, it's one I would not recommend because I just think if you're already in the state of binge drinking, this is a problem that you probably have that is not going to go away after 1 month. And so I know there's people who've, stopped drinking for a decade and then started binge drinking again when they tried to reintroduce it. And so obviously that might not be your situation, but I think it's important to keep in mind that alcohol is addictive, and it is something where once you have 1 or 2, it changes your brain chemistry, and everyone, just because you go into the night thinking I'm going to cap myself at 1 or 2 doesn't mean that that's actually what you're going to do. That would be my advice to this user who made this post. Do the 30-day alcohol-free challenge and see where it leads. And definitely you don't have to go into this thinking that you're going to keep extending that 30 days. Genuinely just do a 30-day challenge and let day 28, 29 inform what you do on day 30. But I think what's great about this post is that it's highlighting a situation that so many of us have been in your 20s, where you're not an alcoholic, you're not addicted to alcohol, but alcohol is having a negative impact on your life in whatever form. In this case, it's binge drinking, which is something I connect to more. Some other people, it might be other situations that they find themselves in when they're drinking alcohol. And I think ultimately the community aspect of getting through this is the most important. And so if you've ever tried going alcohol free or tried being sober, it can be very isolating and lonely, especially if you're in a social group with a lot of people who do drink, which is why I've created a free online community to do a 30-day alcohol-free challenge with support and encouragement from other people across the world who are also on that same challenge journey. The link is in the description below. It's entirely free, and if that's something that sounds interesting to you, then it's really easy to join, and I'd love to see you there to do that 30-day challenge to kickstart your journey. If this video was helpful to you, or you found it interesting breaking down this Reddit comment, then subscribe to my channel for more sober, curious, and alcohol-free content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.